Hey guys, what's happening? So we are back for Eddie Brock Carnage, issue 1. And right out the gate, this lets us know that there's a bit of a tug of war going on here between Eddie and Carnage. And it sets things up so that in time we'll see who has more control here, with Eddie Brock having more experience than anyone else wearing a symbiote, and Carnage being Carnage. I mean, come on. And so with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so diving right in, this starts out on a flight, with Eddie Brock looking for someone known as the Hopscotch Killer. Because when Venom War ended, and we saw Eddie bond with the Carnage symbiote, these two made a deal, since Eddie was bleeding out and getting ready to die, and the Carnage symbiote had been diminished after everything that went on with Meridius. So with the two of them bonding together, we find out very quickly that part of the deal between the two would be that Eddie would only kill like serial killers, just really bad people, and that's it. Which again is why they're on this plane looking for the Hopscotch Killer. But as it stands, Eddie doesn't know which passenger is the killer. And this whole time, the Carnage symbiote is like, what are you waiting for? And it's basically suggesting that Eddie does this by process of elimination. And Carnage just goes on and on like, oh, Eddie, you must have cold feet. You know, and speaking of cold feet, that reminds me of a funny story. So Carnage goes out to tell him how one time he killed a guy by hanging him over a vat of liquid nitrogen while lowering the guy 1 inch at a time, and as the pieces froze, they got heavy, they fell off, and splash. And mind you, Eddie has to sit here and listen to this, and the look on his face is just like, man, if Carnage don't shut up. But of course, he doesn't say that, he doesn't say anything, which then has Carnage like, are you listening to me, Eddie? And Eddie just yells enough, and he spills his drink on the girl next to him. But he's able to apologize and just calm the situation down, as he tells her, I'm not feeling very well, but don't worry, it's not contagious. Just before he takes these red pills. And we're not told at this time what exactly these pills are for, though I imagine there's something along the lines of what we've seen Eddie take before with the Venom symbiote, when he was trying to suppress its voice in the past, though I imagine we'll learn more about them later. And then it's right here where Eddie gets a text from Bailey, who tells him that she's just checking in to make sure that everything's okay. So he texts her back to let her know that getting on this plane was the only way to be sure that the Hopscotch Killer was here. And he goes on to tell her that he's gonna find him, get the ID, so she can tell the cops where to look. And he tells her it's a good plan, as if that were the whole plan. So she expresses her concern about him being stuck on a plane with the killer. And mind you, Carnage is whispering things to Eddie this whole time like, yeah, you certainly are. And from Bailey's perspective, it's not just about Eddie being stuck on the plane with the killer, but there's also all the other passengers here. So Eddie just goes on to let her know that nothing will go wrong and he can handle himself. So Bailey tells him, I know you can, just don't be a hero, okay? So Eddie just tells her not much danger of that, because given his current situation, he feels like he's anything but a hero right now. And so following this, Eddie's like, okay, let's find this guy. And Carnage is just like, finally, I'm ready to kill. In the description that Eddie's been given from Bailey, that she put together from police reports, is that the Hopscotch Killer is a white male, late 30s, maybe early 40s, seasoned traveler, flying on business alone. And aside from Bailey's description, Eddie's also going off of Carnage, telling him that this killer is on the plane, mixed with some of his own reasoning, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And so to find out which one of these passengers is the killer, Eddie sends the Carnage symbiote all throughout the plane so we can check every person here at the same time who fits the description. And part of the reasoning behind Eddie knowing that the killer is someone here, he explains while he's doing this. And it's all in his head, so it's really just him and Carnage who hear any of it. But Eddie goes on to say here, the Hopscotch Killer, named that because they leave victims across the country. And the way the bodies are marked, a distinctive grid carved into the flesh. No real pattern to the locations. Cops thought maybe a truck driver, but forensic analysis showed some killings happened on the same day, too far from each other to be drivable. The next thought was multiple killers, but that didn't track for me. That's incredibly rare. And so Carnage steps in like, oh, I don't know, Eddie. I've been working with a partner for years. But Eddie just goes on to say, which is when I figured Hopscotch is doing his thing during layovers. So Eddie hooks into all the passengers who fit the description. And it reminds Eddie of back when he was King in Black. But Carnage is just like, no, you're able to do this thanks to me. And this is nothing like when you were King in Black. Like, this is all new. But with Eddie seeing everyone's memories, he quickly realizes that none of these passengers have ever killed anyone. And right away, Eddie starts doubting this whole chase. He's like, man, we got it wrong. None of these people are the Hopscotch Killer. But Carnage is just like, no, you got it wrong, Eddie. But you better get it right. So this has Eddie asking Carnage, you sure the killer's on this plane? So Carnage tells him, yes, I can sense them. A death dealer. Someone who lives in the ashes of pain. A mirror. They're here. So now Eddie's like, bump it. And this time he checks everybody. And you can just tell the girl sitting next to him's like, yeah, this guy's a weirdo. But Eddie checks everyone, including her. all the passengers, even the flight attendant, and none of them are the killer, which for a moment has Eddie asking Carnage if Carnage lied. And Carnage is just like, why would I lie? I want to kill. Like, I want this. And it just has Eddie like, okay, I've seen every mind on this plane, every passenger, the flight attendant. And then he's like, oh my God, it's the pilot. So quickly Eddie disconnects from all of the passengers and he rushes to the cabin. But when they get there, the door's locked. And Carnage is just like, come on, man, you serious? Like, if you don't just tear this door off. So they do. But when they go inside, both of the pilots fit the description. So Eddie asks Carnage, which one is it? And Carnage is just like, there's an easy way to solve this problem. Kill them both. And now to complicate things even further, one of the passengers just happens to be a federal air marshal. And Eddie says here that there's only one of them on every 100 flights. So there was literally a 1% chance of this happening. So she draws her gun and she tells him that he has 5 seconds to comply or she'll shoot. And that time runs out. So she squeezes the trigger, only for Carnage to stop Eddie from getting shot because he kind of needs this guy right now. And so when this happens, people start to get freaked out and it turns into this thing where Eddie's no longer playing it low key. So he enters the cabin saying, I know who you are. I know what you've done. It's over. But it's like the pilot he's approaching, this dude's terrified. Because he's like, what in the name of everything holy? While the other one draws a knife and says, I am the only holy thing here, demon. Just before he takes out the other pilot. So the air marshal, she shoots at Eddie again. And when she does, it almost feels like that scene from the first Blade movie at the hospital when the cops were shooting at him. And it's like, really, what exactly are we doing? And this is the least of Eddie's troubles, because right now the hopscotch killer is just gutting the controls of the plane. And he's saying all kind of crazy stuff like, I'll bring the purifying flame, the cleansing fire, the demon will die, all demons will die. Like, this guy really believes he was sent to do God's work. But basically he's giving himself and everyone on this plane a death sentence, which for a moment has Carnage like, you know what? I think I like this one. You know, wait, hear me out. And without warning, they just do the signature Carnage splash kill, which has both Eddie and Carnage like, oh, this feels good. Which is a little concerning coming from Eddie, but at the same time, they just stopped the hopscotch killer. So I won't totally blame him for that. But now with them still being on a plane full of people that's going down, this creates another problem for Eddie. And I mean, Carnage is just more or less like, well, I don't see the problem, let's go. But Eddie just tells him not yet, this wasn't the deal. As he reaches back for the passengers, and Eddie gets every last one of them out of there. And man, this pisses Carnage off. Cause Carnage is like, you can't use my powers like this. This isn't what I do. He's like, you sanctimonious monster. How dare you sully me, my legacy, by doing something like this? You don't deserve me, Eddie Brock. And it's almost like Carnage isn't just mad. It's almost like he's hurt. The deception. And this leads to Carnage telling Eddie like, hey man, you remember how it felt to kill the hopscotch killer? Well, imagine how good it would feel to kill this many people. And he's like, come on man, just this once, then we'll stick to the deal. And when Carnage says this, it's right here where Eddie just blacks out, only to wake up later on with absolutely no recollection of what happened to those people. And it's terrifying for Eddie because for one, he's like, wait, did Carnage kill all those people? And then two is like, wait, Carnage could just make me black out and do whatever he wants? So yeah, this is a huge problem. But as soon as Eddie gets up, he gets a call from Bailey. And she's freaking out because she's trying to figure out what happened. And she's just glad to know that Eddie's alive. And the first thing that Eddie asks her is what happened to the plane and the passengers. So she tells him the plane he was on crashed and they only found 2 bodies, which were the pilot and the co-pilot. So she's freaking out and she's asking if Hopscotch was even on the plane. So Eddie answers in the most uncertain way possible. He's just like, well, Hopscotch was the pilot, I guess. But right after that, he tells her he has to go. And he promises that he'll call her back soon. But right now, he needs to talk to Carnage, face to face. And when Eddie does this, I can't help it, but Carnage looks like he's channeling his inner Muzan from Demon Slayer. Like he's just giving off that vibe here. And when Eddie shows up, Carnage is just like, I'm here for you, whatever you need. So Eddie tells him, what I need is for you to tell me what happened back there. What happened to the passengers on that plane? How did I get back to the hotel? I've got missing time, and the only explanation is you. Tell me what you did. So Carnage just looks at Eddie for a second, and then he's like, no. And this gets Eddie worked up to the point where he's like, tell me what you did, and Carnage is just like, or what, Eddie? Or what? Like, what exactly are you going to do? So Carnage goes on to say here, there's only one thing you can do to me, and we both know you won't do it. If you die, I die. But that's not happening. I can see into your mind, Eddie. Your soul. You're not suicidal. Personally, I don't get it. You're broke. Your kid refuses to see you. You're completely alone. But for some reason, you just keep plodding along. I'm all you've got, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. I've been diminished since all that business with Meridius. I'm not as independent as I once was. I need a host, and you need a way to tell yourself you're a good person. We both get what we want. And so Eddie's like, you don't just want to host, Carnage. You want to kill people. So Carnage tells him, so do you, pal. Don't kid a kidder. You want power too. You miss that other symbiote of yours, the simpleton Venom. You aren't the King in Black anymore, and you miss that too. In case you forgot, this whole thing we're doing was your idea. You wanted to bring me into you. You wanted to make the big sacrifice, carry me so no one else would have to. Thought you could control me and get all my power too. You want to go after serial killers. If that'll soothe Eddie Brock's little baby conscience, fine, be my guest. I bet we'll meet some truly interesting people. So Eddie tells him yes, but not innocence. That wasn't the deal. What did you do with the passengers? How did you blank out my memory? So Carnage is just like, I'm not gonna tell you, Eddie. In fact, I'm insulted you'd even ask. Did you really think things wouldn't get bloody? We are Carnage. Enough chit chat. Time to get this train moving. You need to find someone to kill, killer. But I want someone with powers this time. I'm evaluating these people as potential hosts after all. I want someone with juice. Otherwise, well, it's not a fair fight, is it? So Eddie's just like, fine, whatever. Who? So Carnage tells him, oh, I've got some ideas, but it's not really my choice. Out there in the real world, you're steering this ship. So, my good friend Eddie, when it comes to our next little hunt, you tell me. And the options that Carnage gives Eddie are the Silver Surfer, Bullseye, Galactus, Phoenix, Hela, Daredevil, Electra Daredevil, Bushwhacker, Fool Killer, and the all-new Venom. And it's just like, yo, like what in the Marvel Rivals meets Marvel Snap meets Contest of Champions is going on here? Like if I was Eddie, I'd be like, what kind of list is this? But I will say this, if one of these people were to be the next host for the Carnage symbiote, which one would you choose? Let me know in the comments. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.